blazing in Southern California, so we're on the ground there. Plus, the teachers are still striking in Chicago, but they're making some progress. And Representative Elijah Cummings will be laid to rest today. But first, here are your headlines.
Indonesian investigators have issued a report on last year's crash of a Lion Air 737 MAX, declaring that a host of problems caused it. Flaws in the aircraft's design, inadequate training, and maintenance issues.
Disgraced Hollywood producer Harvey Weinstein, who's facing sexual assault charges. He showed up at a bar in New York to attend an event for young actors, and two women ripped into him, calling him a monster.
Nobody's really gonna say anything. I'm gonna stand 4 feet from a rapist, and nobody's gonna say anything.
The women were kicked out of the bar. People in the crowd say Weinstein went relatively unnoticed until comic Kelly Bachman pointed him out.
It's our job to name the elephant in the room. Do we know what that is?
To me, it felt like this is a monster from your nightmares.
A representative for Weinstein tells The Hollywood Reporter this scene was uncalled for, downright rude, and an example of how due process today is being squashed by the public, trying to take it away in the courtroom, too.
Hurts by Lizzo, the song of the summer, and a star-making mega hit for the 31-year-old rapper-songwriter out of Minnesota. Success of Truth Hurts has led others to assert authorship of one of its key lines.
I just took a DNA test, turns out I'm 100% dead.
Two different entities have sought credit and compensation for coming up with that "we won't say it here" witticism. Songwriting duo Justin and Jeremiah Raisin, claiming in these Instagram posts they are co-writers for Truth Hurts, and those people have refuted that. A suit she's filed against them says that the Raisin's publisher has asked for 20% ownership of Truth Hurts.
All right, so we're starting out west. The wildfires are still burning out of control in Southern California, destroying homes and pushing tens of thousands of people to evacuate. So Matt Gutman is on the ground in Santa Clarita, California with the latest. Matt, it's good to see you. Can you just show us what you're dealing with right now?
It's been an intense battle all morning long here, Kimberly, and good morning to you. Congratulations on the set. This is just one house that firefighters have been trying to put down. It has been burning for 5 hours now. We've been here, and it's still not out. It gives you a sense of the intensity of the firefight. Check out the assets. So many fire trucks here. We've been seeing air assets as well, trying to hit this thing. And tens of thousands of people, 40,000 just in this area alone of Santa Clarita. I'm going to help my cameraman navigate this little river caused by all the firefighters' water. So many homes, and there was this gridlock getting out yesterday. Officers going door to door, begging people to get out, on bullhorn saying, get out now. This fire was entirely engulfing that bowl. And I'm going to take you back to see what it looks like behind. And one of the things you're going to notice right away, Kimberly, those palm trees just over my left shoulder, look at them just flailing in the wind there. And that's been the story here. It's this wind. Gusting this morning at over 50 miles an hour. It's still gusting, probably at 40s plus. This firefighter is going to help us get through here. It's got a hose full of water, but I want you to see what it looks like on the other side. So this is where the wind's been coming all the way up this valley. This morning, everything here was engulfed in flames. These fires were just leaping over here, and firefighters did an incredible job rescuing most of these houses in this neighborhood. They really saved them despite flames that were leaping 20, 30 feet in the air at times. Now, the brush here is super, super dry. What we're seeing is what you could call the three horsemen of the fire apocalypse. We have extremely low humidity, like less than in a dry sauna. We also have high temperatures, well into the 90s, and very high wind, as you just noticed. And this is what firefighters had to contend with, right? So the back of the house looked fine, but those flying embers that we've been seeing for the past 24 hours somehow got into the eaves of this house. They've been hacking away, trying to get it out. I think it's mostly out. There's one other thing I want you to see, Kimberly. We're gonna walk across the street here. I'm gonna have my cameraman, Jeff, point at those houses over there. You can see that kind of weird pinkish magenta glow. They were hit with fire retardant from a plane. That gives you a sense of how intense the battle was here from the air, on the ground, and this is going on across this area. And more bad news, these red flag warnings are expected to persist throughout the entire day today and then be back early next week. So a very hectic and hard and tiring few days ahead for firefighters. So far, no word on the number of damages, of structures damaged, that we've seen several of them ourselves. Firefighters going to come out with those numbers a little bit later. Kimberly.
Yeah, and Matt, just before I leave you, I just want to know, do we have any idea of if this is going to get better anytime soon?
Yeah, well, today probably not. The fire danger is going to head south of where we are here into Orange County, San Diego County, and persist here. So, no, it's going to get possibly worse if that's possible. But, you know, the good news is not many houses caught fire. We're not talking about entire neighborhoods here, although we're talking about many thousands of acres and enormous disruption in people's lives. You know, those 40,000 people they had to pick up and go without any warning pretty much whatsoever. So very tough for lots of folks out here. Kimberly.
Yes, it's pretty difficult to imagine. Matt Gutman right there in Santa Clarita, thank you for the updates. We appreciate it. And in the meantime, firefighters continue to battle a separate wildfire in Northern California. So Will Reeve is in Sonoma County following that for us. Will?
Hey, Kimberly, here in Sonoma County, 16,000 acres and counting burning in the Kincaid fire, just 5% contained per the last reports. Right now, though, the wind has died down, which is going to be helpful for the firefighters who need to try to get the upper hand on this thing as more winds come into the area this coming weekend. This fire has been pretty destructive. Luckily, no major injuries or too many structures affected because it's a relatively lightly populated area, but the reports are 49 structures at least destroyed, like these right here, up in flames across a road, which just gives you a bit of a sense of how unpredictable this fire was and how wind-driven it was. On one side of the road is that charred home. On the other side, all the way up here, is the hill. These are the mountains. These are where the vineyards are. That is where the fire really began. That is where the smoke really was billowing and where the fire came tearing down that hill and jumped the road. Just one example. And just to see how smoky it is, I should really be wearing this. If you come with me and look down that road, you can barely see anything. That's what it's like all through this valley. Smoke just completely blanketing the entire area because there is no wind. That, though, is expected to change this coming weekend. Red flag warnings in effect, high winds, possibly record winds in the area. So firefighters are really racing against time to get this fire out or at least contained so it doesn't get really catastrophic in the coming days. Meanwhile, they are looking into the cause of the fire. Right now, preliminary reports are that PG&E, the local utility company, the largest in the state, may have a role in that fire. A transmission center might have lost power and then sparked the fire. Still, though, unconfirmed, so not too much speculating there, but that is being considered as a possible cause of the fire. We will find more out about that in the coming days as this region of California gets a brief respite right now, but prepares for more possible damage that could end up like this. So everyone has to be very careful. Evacuations still in place. People should not come back here until it is fully safe to do so. That won't be the case for at least a few days as these winds pick up. Fire, very much a real threat here in Northern California, Kimberly.
Yes, it's unbelievable. A very different scene from Matt. We hope everyone stays safe. Thank you, Will. So, guys, we're moving on to remembering a legend. Family, friends, and former presidents paying tribute to the late Congressman Elijah Cummings at his funeral today in Baltimore. Former Presidents Barack Obama and Bill Clinton speaking at the funeral today, along with Hillary Clinton and House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. And this comes after Cummings became the first African-American lawmaker in U.S. history to lie in state at the Capitol. The late congressman passed away last week due to long-standing health issues. All right, guys, so we're going to move on to Washington. ABC News learning today the Justice Department is opening a criminal investigation into the Russia probe to see how it all began. And I want to bring in Terry Moran to break this down for us. Terry, so I want to ask you first off, is this investigation even legitimate?
Well, sure. I mean, it is legitimate. The prosecutor who's running it, not the attorney general, but the actual prosecutor who's doing the investigation is a man named John Durham. He's the U.S. attorney in Connecticut. He is profoundly admired by Democrats and Republicans. He was nominated for the position of U.S. attorney in Connecticut, which requires Senate approval, by Connecticut's 2 Democratic senators. He's got a sterling reputation as a mob prosecutor and is basically a non-political prosecutor. So he is not anybody's fool, and he is not going to be, engaged in some kind of wild goose chase. Second, this was an administrative review. You remember President Trump directed the Attorney General, take a look at the origins of the Russia investigation, which President Trump deeply resents. Was there anything wrong there? And it is probably worth looking at. You don't really want the FBI and the CIA to investigate political campaigns without a really good reason. And that's what he was to take a look at. He now believes, and it's a pretty low threshold, that he needs some of the powers of a criminal investigation to get to the bottom of things. There has been some wrongdoing. We know because a judge on the secret court that issues, warrants for wiretapping and national security cases, she has already said she was not fully, fairly informed by the FBI agents who petitioned her for the permission to tap Trump associates. So there are questions there that need to be answered to the satisfaction of people. Sure, it's legitimate. Are they going to find anything? Who knows? But it's legitimate.
Yeah, I think it just raises concerns for some people that the president may be trying to go after his enemies. But I want to get your opinion on this. How does all of this work in the middle of an impeachment investigation going on, all these impeachment investigations?
Well, that's a great question. First, there's no question. There's fear that Trump is abusing the Justice Department. He has tried to before. It's pretty clear. And there's a lot of concern that Attorney General William Barr, who deeply mischaracterized the original Mueller report, is not trustworthy, that he's more a political tool than an attorney general. So there are legitimate concerns on that side. How it plays into impeachment, it's really a rare bit of good news for Republicans. They can say, look, the Democrats have been going after the president again and again. The Russia investigation did not turn up any evidence of conspiracy or coordination between the Trump campaign and the Kremlin, so the Democrats were wrong about that. And there may have been something criminal in how the deep state, in their view, launched the investigation in the first place. They need some good news because the impeachment inquiry is not going well for them, and this gives them at least something to throw into the mix.
Yeah, so as this is going on, the White House is considering, creating several new positions designed to deal with the ongoing investigation. Is this like a change in strategy?
Well, once again, going back to Mr. Durham, the prosecutor, he's unlikely to be the tool of the Trump White House. He just hasn't. It's a long career. There's no indication that he's that guy. Nevertheless, it plays into the Trump strategy. Right now, if you can call it that, it's an incoherent strategy. They're just throwing everything at the wall, hoping something sticks, because the president needs to beef up his legal team. He needs to have a coherent strategy. He needs to have message discipline because he's in trouble. As the witnesses come in and the evidence comes in, it's pretty clear that the American people polls show and increasing number of Republicans take this very seriously. This is a serious investigation, and he needs a serious response to it.
Terry, you've covered these impeachments before. Where do you see all of this going?
A trial in the Senate. We're going to see that. I'm pretty sure. It certainly seems that the Democrats are moving towards impeachment and putting the president on trial in the Senate. And then the question is, how much does this metastasize? How much does this spread? Are there other witnesses? Are there other countries where the president might have been using his power for political purposes? Yesterday, at an event, the president's chief trade negotiator, Peter Navarro, was asked point blank in his trade negotiations with China, did he bring up investigating the Bidens? You'll remember President Trump told China in public, hey, start investigating the Bidens. And this official was asked, have you raised that with China? Were you told to raise that with China? And he refused to answer. So if this investigation starts spiraling into other areas, you know, all bets are off.
All right, senior national correspondent Terry Moran in our D.C. bureau breaking it down. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Kimberly.
Yes, good to see you. And guys, we move on to the ongoing teacher strike at Chicago public schools. It's been over a week now, but the Chicago Teachers Union saying they're making good progress. So I want to bring in Alex Perez, who's on the ground in Chicago, to give us the latest. Alex, what's happening right now?
Hey there, Kimberly, I want you to take a look behind me here. You can see there's a group of teachers picketing here outside Chicago Public Schools headquarters. This has pretty much been the scene here and at schools across the city for now 7 days. This is day 7 of this strike. That means 300,000 Chicago Public School students have not been in school this entire time. Negotiations, when we hear from both sides, say they have been tough. They had, up until now, said they were not making any progress, but that changed last night and this morning. Both sides now saying that they feel like they are making some progress. As you might imagine, for a lot of frustrated parents, they're happy to hear that there's some progress being made, but as of right now, it's still unclear when exactly the strike will end. Kimberly?
Yeah, and do we know the details of the last things that they're trying to negotiate? What are they working on?
Well, yeah, you talk to officials about this, both sides, they'll tell you there's a long list of things they are negotiating. Usually you think about money as being one of the top priorities, and it was, but it seems they've come to some sort of an agreement on money. Right now, what the Chicago Teachers Union is fighting for, they say,
All right, so we just lost Alex Perez there, but we appreciate him being on the ground in Chicago for us. So we're going to move on to some new Netflix movies that are streaming. Have you guys heard of Dolomite Is My Name? It's getting a lot of buzz. It's a biopic comedy starring Eddie Murphy as the comedian Rudy Ray Moore. And Wesley Snipes also has an interesting role in this movie. But one of the characters that really lit up the screen is a character called Lady Reed, a fiery woman played by Divine Joy Randolph, and recently I sat down with her, so take a look.
When I had first got the audition, everything was like untitled, everything was mysterious, like I didn't have the script, I just knew her name, or I knew that this is a real person, look her up. So I look her up, nothing on her. Which that's a whole nother thing that I was like, that's no good.
Yeah.
We need to figure that out. You know, within our culture, there's so many unsung heroes and stories that just disappear. And that's just, it's no good. And I feel as though as an artist, that's part of my responsibility. You know what I mean? To illuminate these stories. And that's why Dolomite is so powerful, because there's people within our culture definitely that know him. But now what's so beautiful is that a vast majority is going to get to know him that didn't know him. And so, yeah.
It's funny you say that, because one of the things that Lady Reed says during the movie, she says, I'm so grateful, she's talking to Dolomite, for what you did for me, because I've never seen nobody that looks like me up on that big screen. And it's sort of like a meta situation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
For sure. What was interesting is, in preparing for the role, I listened to her party albums. Her voice was my biggest way in, as well as her movies. It kind of felt like a boot camp in a sense. I had several callbacks, but what the blessing in that is that Eddie put me through like a boot camp, so to speak, without it ever being said. The callbacks then felt like workshops. And so what I realized is I was like, oh, I'm going through his process of how he does the work and his work ethic. And that is something that is a gift and very intense and thorough.
Was it crazy for you to have this lead with Eddie Murphy, who's just like an icon, and then you're with Wesley Snipes?
Yeah.
What was that like for you working alongside them?
Oh, it's a trip. But I will say this. They're some of the nicest people that I've ever met in life, as well as by far as professionals in the industry.
Is this one of your, your more favorite roles that you've played, because you've been in Empire?
Right.
And then obviously Oda Mae Brown, Ghost the musical. Which character have you really enjoyed playing the most?
what I take the most pride in is the range. I knew it when I decided that I was going to do this, that I was like, it's imperative that two things happen. One, that you don't define nor see me by my size and the color of my skin. And secondly, it was important for me to show you the reality of what is the world. It's all relevant because you don't understand the amount of power and influence that you have in the roles that you choose.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Because I have a deep devotion to whatever I'm playing because art heals.
Yes, so she really is divine. And again, Dolomite Is My Name is streaming now on Netflix, so you guys can check that out. And guys, some more excitement in Washington that has nothing to do with the impeachment investigations. I'm not a big baseball fan, but my producer did his best to get me excited because DC is hosting its first World Series game since 1933 when the Nationals take on the Astros tonight. So that got us wondering what the world was like back in 1933. Well, if you didn't know, Franklin Delano Roosevelt started his first term in office. The movie King Kong premiered at the box office, and construction started on the Golden Gate Bridge. Also, some people born in 1933, Willie Nelson, Yoko Ono, and Larry King. Now, this next guy, he was not born in 1933, but he is our resident baseball superfan, ABC News political director, Rick Clyde. Rick, get me excited for tonight because, as I said, not there yet.
Yeah, John, Carl, and I were just over at the stadium. We interviewed the general manager for our podcast, Powerhouse Politics. And look, this is a big moment for Washington, which lost 2 franchises, the only city in the history of baseball to lose not 1 but 2 franchises. And as you mentioned, hasn't been to the World Series in that magic number of 86 years, all the way back to 1933. So all of that changes, and they come home tonight with a 2-0 lead over the Houston Astros. So they have a chance to close it out at home if they win just 2 out of the next 3.
How excited are you? Because you're kind of delivering this to me the same way you tell me about politics. I know you're super excited. So can you just express that to me?
Well, I'm wearing a Washington Nationals tie, if you can't tell from the colors, and the city is excited. And look, this team has meant a lot. I've actually lived in Washington as long as the franchise itself. They moved from Montreal in 2005. That's the same year I moved to Washington, so I've sort of adopted it as my team. My kids are into it. The teachers at the kids' school are into it. The bus drivers, the Uber drivers, everyone you run into is into this Nationals team. It's a remarkable story. They came back from 12 games under 500 back early in the season to storm all the way through to win on a comeback fashion in a couple of rounds of the playoffs. They swept the Cardinals, and now they have the potential to sweep even the mighty Houston Astros. A lot going on and a lot of excitement around a really, really compelling team.
All right, and your predictions on winners, losers, if you may.
Well, go Nats. The sweep would be sweet. The best thing, though, would be to be able to win at home and to have Washington have its first World Series champion since 1924. That would be something, a team that has long lived down with various baseball curses to be able to exercise those demons. But as the Nats have said this year, all they want to do is go 1-0 today. So 1 game at a time. Let's start with tonight, first pitch around 8:08.
I love it, Rick. I'm excited for you. You being excited makes me excited, and I love how you're doing double duty as political director and baseball director. So thank you. Good to see you.
Go Nats. All right. Thanks so much.
Have fun. All right, guys, so we've made it through the show. It's the weekend. I hope you continue to take care of yourselves. And if you're around, you can stick around for the briefing room at 3:30 p.m. Then check out World News Prime at 8 p.m. And if you want to stay updated on all of these headlines, you can go to abcnews.com or download the app. I'm Kimberly Brooks, and I will see you next week.